Welcome to the Lee Schools TV podcast. I'm Adam Wright. Joining us today is Dr. Charles O'Connor, science teacher and environmental education coordinator at Gulf Middle School, my alma mater. Charles, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Adam.
So you have been teaching middle school science for 24 years.
Seems like it, yes.
And Dr. Charles O'Connor, is it a PhD? Or?
No, I'm a retired physician.
Okay, all right.
Chiropractic.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So you, well, first of all, you're a Golden Apple winner. You won the Golden Apple in 2012. Science Teacher of the Year in 2013. Environmental Education Teacher of the Year 2008. But before you got into teaching, you went through quite a few career changes, right? Can you tell me a little bit about your past?
Sure. Well, it seems like I've been working all my life, and some of the jobs are very pleasant. But my first corporate job, I guess, was with Channel 2 when I was in high school, and I came on as a janitor. So I was at Bishop Row and doing janitorial work in the afternoons and worked my way up to videotape editor and then studio head, and then finally directing 6 and 11 o'clock news in high school. And I continued that going into broadcasting. I got tired of broadcasting in general and started a photography business. And I'm not much of a businessman. I don't like to sell or convince people. So I folded that up and went to chiropractic school, got my doctorate, came out and changed to children's counseling. Really, I felt like I was having a better impact. And when that nonprofit business folded, I went into teaching. So, and there's a few other odd jobs in between, but I've been teaching most of my career, I'd say.
So you might notice if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube that we've got some skulls and some fossils on
That's
the table.
right.
So you have been fossil hunting for more than 50 years, right?
I calculated this morning probably 60 years. Growing
60.
up in Tampa, they had shark's teeth in the sides of the cement walls of the ditches, and I think back then I started prying them out with a hammer and a screwdriver, so it's been quite a while.
Yeah, so you brought some items with you to show and talk about.
Sure.
So if you're just listening to the audio version of the podcast, I encourage you to check out the Facebook or YouTube video version because this is some really cool stuff that you brought with you. So let's just go ahead and dig into it, I guess you could say.
That's very good.
What is the first item that you'd want to talk about?
Well, first I should say that if you're interested in fossiling, you can join a fossil club. Also, save your specimens until you find a book or somebody knowledgeable. So don't throw anything away. Find out what it is. So it's a occupation. It's a pastime. We're always learning, and you are maybe the very first person to see some of these treasures. Here's one. Most of these I found in the Peace River, the fossils. Everyone knows what a mammoth is from Ice Age. We had some of the largest mammoths in the world here. We had Columbian mammoths, and this is one tooth.
That's a mammoth tooth.
Most of one tooth is missing a few plates here, and this is the chewing surface here. And if this animal was alive, it'd be positioned up in here, and they ate grass, which is very abrasive, and this tooth would have worn all the way down, but this was the final tooth of a set of 6. They went through 6 sets, and after this worn down, that animal would have died, just like Grandma and Grandpa and you and I. Once we wear our teeth out, we don't have Metamucil or any of the
So
nitrates.
you personally dug that out?
Yeah, so it was
And
under a
you-
foot of...
Yeah, tell me where you found it.
Under a foot of sand. I found it next to this cabbage palm tree with a vulture circling overhead. I found it in the Peace River.
Yeah.
That site has been explored because I went back every weekend for about a year. But under a foot of sand, and I saw one patch, and people were really good at forming search images. So once I saw that little pattern, I knew what it was, and I pulled it out, and subsequently I found a bunch of vertebrae and other teeth and so on.
So Peace River, that's in Tampa?
Peace River is a 100-mile river coming out near Punta Gorda and
yeah.
starting up in the middle of the state. It's very fossiliferous, very fossil-rich.
Okay. And so you've been searching for fossils there for 60 years?
No, probably about 20 years. I
Okay.
hit it hard early in my career. I don't go there so much anymore.
So we had mammoths in Florida. I feel like
sure.
a lot of people might not realize that.
We had a couple kinds of mammoths in Florida. There are a lot of different kinds of mammoths, and they all died out about 10,000 years ago in Florida. But we had, like I say, one of the largest Columbian mammoths in Florida,
And
about
that-
14 feet tall at the maximum.
And that tooth,
one
10
tooth.
pounds? heavier?
Yeah, probably so. That's a good guess. And they only had 4 teeth, and they had some more ready to come in and drop in. So these are really cool. After this tooth had worn down, there'd be enzymes in the gum, in the jaw, that would dissolve the tooth and would fall out, leaving room for the next one to come in, almost like a conveyor belt. So it's a great system. We also had mastodons here. So a mastodon is a little bit smaller and only 10 feet, and they lived in the forest. And you can see the difference in the tooth structure.
So that's a tooth too.
Yeah, they were browsers. They ate a lot of heavy twigs and young trees and so on. So this is a very rare type of mastodon, a gomphith here.
Did you find that in the Peace River as well?
I did. I found about 4 or 5 of these on one snorkeling trip, and it's a beautiful specimen, river polished.
So do you go searching specifically for these, or you just get lucky and find them? Does it take a long time to happen upon one of these things?
Both.
Yeah.
So the more dirt you move, the more you'll find. So I have a big screen, and a lot of times I just snorkel, and I fan the ground, I raccoon the surface, the sandy surface, and then the flow of the water will carry the sand and the mud away. But you have to spend a lot of time. But again, if you join a club or read a few books, you can kind of spot geologically maybe the more prominent, more promising sites. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Do you do this by yourself? Do you go with a small group?
Both.
Yeah. Can we see that mastodon tooth one more time? Okay, so you said a little bit, but what's the difference between a mastodon and a mammoth? Obviously size.
Well, size and diet.
Because I know mastodon is, when I think of mastodon, I think of the Black Power Ranger. I think he morphed into a mastodon, and there's a heavy metal band Mastodon too, I think.
Wait, so you're into areas I don't know about. We'll have to interview you next. But a mammoth, you've seen it in the cartoons. They have big, long, curvy tusks, so they curve down and curve up and in. Very tall, and they lived in the grasslands, tundra. So they ate a lot of grass, and grass has silica, very abrasive, so it wears itself down. These guys were a little smaller, maybe 8, 9 feet, and so they lived in the forest, and they were browsers, not grazers, and they pulled down branches and twigs, and you can see how much more robust their tooth structure is, which is where they get their name, mast.
Okay, and that's about how old?
This one's probably anywhere from 2 to 5 million. They disappeared around that time. So Peace River is good because it cuts through so many strata of rock that you have a tumbling of fossils that may be 5 and 6 million years old to 10,000 years old.
Wow. Okay, so what else? You've got some skulls or
sure.
other
now,
things you want to...
If you're really interested in the types of animals we used to have here, we had, believe it or not, we had rhinoceros here in Florida.
Get out.
2 kinds of rhinos, and they were kind of like hippos. They lived in the water. They really didn't have a horn.
So those are rhino teeth?
These are rhino teeth. It's like a W. I mean, that's the complete tooth. It's beautiful. And once you feel a rhino tooth, the texture on it is like nothing else. It's just beautiful.
Yeah,
so
smooth.
You could close your eyes and feel one of these fossils and know that you have a rhino tooth in your hand. We had dire wolves. You've probably seen those before.
Dire wolf?
About
like
the size
Game of Thrones?
Yeah, oh no, yeah. Is that a dire wolf?
I think so.
Yeah, they were smaller.
That's what they called
them
in the show.
Yeah, they're about the size of a wolf.
So what's a dire wolf? What's the difference between a dire wolf and a
dire,
wolf?
Means threatening and important and strong. So they're about the size of one of our largest wolves today. I think gray wolf.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're gone too. 10,000 years ago. Rhinos disappeared about 5 million years ago.
From
we
Florida.
Had saber cats. From United States. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. During the last great extinction.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea that there were ever rhinos in Florida or the United States.
Oh, we had so many types of animals here. We had camels. Here's a camel tooth.
Really?
There's a camel tooth here somewhere. We had camels. We had llamas. In fact, llamas, camels, and horses all developed in North America, spread to South America, and they died out here with the climate changes and also the coming of people. So people, may have been already on their unstable ground, metaphorically speaking, but when people showed up, they really pushed them over. They overhunted, for sure.
So are these all from the Peace River, or have you've gotten them from...
Short-faced bear. We had a bear here on all fours. It would be 5 feet tall, looking you in the face. One of the largest land carnivores we ever had. But I think my favorite fossil I have found, besides gator, jaws, and so on, is a giant ground sloth. So
Yeah, and you brought a picture of this thing.
Yeah. So I didn't know what this was when I found it. I jumped over a phosphate mine fence years ago, back when it wasn't as dangerous as it is now. You know, now they'll lock you up. But this is the claw to a giant ground sloth.
Yeah, just hold that up so
Sure.
Emily can get a good shot of it. That thing looks absolutely terrifying. So that's a saber-toothed tiger attacking it?
Saber-toothed cat.
Saber-toothed cat, okay.
Uh-huh.
So saber-toothed tiger is wrong.
Yeah, it's not,
You're not supposed to
it's not
say
a
that?
tiger or a lion. It's a, yes, so it's, there's,
Well, anyway,
there's a difference
the
there.
saber-toothed cat, that's a scary animal.
Sure.
And
we had those here too. This picture's all wrong. Saber-toothed didn't really ambush from the trees. They ambushed from the ground.
Yeah.
But that's getting technical.
But that thing it's attacking, that giant ground sloth,
Right. And this
that
ground
looks
sloth.
like a bear on steroids or something.
Yeah. Well, it's got a giraffe's tongue, you notice.
Oh, yeah,
so they
yeah.
pulled down branches, and they were mainly herbivores.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, looking at their teeth DNA, rather the isotopes, we can see they sometimes ate meat. They probably found a kill. Somebody else killed it, and they pushed the carnivore aside, and they had a little bit of meat. But they're all extinct now, too. They developed in South America, came up here, and they're extinct throughout the world. But we still have tree sloths.
So that's a claw.
This is a claw, medium-sized claw. They get about this long.
That's a medium, okay.
This is a medium, same species, Megalonyx. But anyway, we had those here.
Wow.
And Fort Myers, Cape Coral, all around.
Get out.
We had African lions here. We had American lion.
I was going to say, yeah.
This is an African lion. And I brought a small skull. I've got a couple because it's easier. But it's a beautiful female, zoo animal, about 100 years old, beautiful dentition. But we had an African lion. I'm sorry, I keep saying African. We had an American lion here, which was bigger than the African lion. Saber-toothed cats were twice as heavy as African lions. They were extremely strong.
Wow. And so Peace River as well? You found
No,
this?
this was somebody's collection that I bought.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We had condors here. We had swans. We had a terror bird, 9-foot tall bird, which used to be very fast, run down animals and just kill them with this huge beak, terror bird. So the one here was only maybe 8 to 9 feet tall.
So I see you've got two cat skulls.
Yeah.
The smaller one is a panther?
This is a Florida panther.
Can you put that next to
Sure.
the lion skull just to give people an idea of the difference in size? Because the lion skull is about twice as big, 3 times as big.
And
as
this is a very small lion skull, too.
Oh.
But this is the Florida panther skull. It's from FWC, Florida. And so they say this is the only one on loan. I'm the only person that's ever asked to borrow one. So it's on temporary loan for a few years. And I have other skulls in my classroom, dugong, black bear, dolphin, and so on, which are also on loan from the state. You're not allowed to own those endangered animals, but you can borrow them. And I use this in the Florida panther class that I teach. This is, anyway, a 4-year-old female. Guess what? Guess how she got killed? You can probably guess pretty easily.
Hit by a car?
Hit by a car.
Wow, yeah. When I was reporting at Wink, I would report every now and then about panther deaths. Am I correct? They're making somewhat of a comeback, or am I wrong on that? At least they're not in as steep of a decline as they were a few years ago.
Exactly.
Okay.
So at one point we thought there were maybe 25, 30 individuals left. A few decades back. Now we think there's around 200. The problem is there's still not enough land. We have pretty much appropriated most of their land. One male panther needs 200 square miles. A female needs 125 square miles. That's a lot of land. But when you protect the land, you support not only the panthers, you protect all the water conservation areas, you protect all the other wildlife in the area. So I think it's a great idea to protect more land for panthers, and you're protecting all the other species underneath the panther as well. But we're building a lot of roads, we're building a lot of malls, you know the story. I grew up here, so I'm allowed to say that.
I was going to ask, did you go to University of Florida? Because I know you've worked with them a lot. Okay,
a couple times.
All right, go Gators. Well, you also teach a class on the Florida panther, right?
That's right.
And you said that you use a Florida panther kit. You're the only classroom in the county that uses this? What is that?
Yeah, so when I was at the environmental education program with Lee County Schools, some of your viewers may remember that. It used to be a very strong program. Cindy Bear, who is now my wife, hired me out of the classroom, and she developed this kit along with funding by FWC. And it's a really great kit, which we're resurrecting today and updating. So it has a class of skulls, it's got class sets of books, scat samples, which is poop, washed panther poop. So we just did this a few weeks ago. The children can look at it. It's all protected and washed. They can see what the prey was, where they're eating bear, or not bear, but boar. But anyway, it has a complete set. And so it combines natural sciences, biology, reading, writing, activism. So it combines all the core subjects. It's wonderful. So we're resurrecting it. We're with FWC. We're updating the biology and improving everything about it. But right now, I'm the only Lee County school using it.
So other than, the numbers that you gave, about 200 estimated panthers still in Florida, and you gave the square mileage that they need, anything else? What else should people know about the Florida panther? Why are they an important species to the state?
That's a great question. Thank you. Well, you should, if you're worried, you should know that Florida panthers have never attacked anybody in history. Now, western cougars will, and cougars and panthers are very similar. This is a distinct subspecies of cougars. So out west, you'll have them tracking you in the mountains, and they do attack and kill people, but not in Florida. Same with black bears too. But more to answer your question, they're an umbrella species. So if we protect, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if we protect a top predator like this and the land it's on, we are also conserving the water resources, we're conserving the birds, we're conserving all the other species that are interlocked on that land. And that's the best way to really save what's left of Florida.
And they're beautiful creatures too.
Oh, they really are. Yeah.
Okay, so you've not only been fossil hunting in the Peace River here in Florida, you've also worked with University of Florida scientists, right? And you've gone on some excavations in Panama?
Yeah, so when I was at UF doing my undergraduate work in the 80s, there's a work program there, study work for students. So I heard about it. I went to the ichthyology department, which was advertising for a student work study. And their job was to transfer fish out of 2,000 specimen jars from formaldehyde, which is toxic, to the new stuff formalin, which is non-toxic. So I looked at it and I said, I'm really interested in fossils. I said, this doesn't appeal to me too much. And they said, go down the hall. So I went down the hall to the vertebrate paleontology range and got hired there and really loved it. So I was cleaning and assembling some of the fossils as an amateur and learned a lot. So since then, I've kept in contact. And my wife, Cindy Bear, manages the Calusa Heritage Trail on Pineland, the original Tampa site, Randell Research Center, which is a part of UF. So between both of us, we've kept in contact with the museum. We volunteered to go down to Panama a few years ago, and the new Panama locks were being enlarged. You heard about that, new excavations. So we went down there and worked with paleontologists studying that area as a shark nursery. And then I was hired twice more to come back and be an educator at Liaison, because we were bringing teachers from the United States and showing them how to integrate science with the classroom and natural enthusiasm. So it's been great. And since then, we've gone around the state to other sites too.
And so when you went to Panama a few times, and you took part in some paleo digs?
Yeah, sure.
What's a paleo dig?
Well, paleontology, actually Da Vinci was the father of paleontology, Leonardo da Vinci. So it's a study of ancient life, things that used to be alive and no longer are. And we had special access to restricted Panama Canal zones where they were excavating, and you had to go in quickly because down there, the heat and everything just grew up really quickly. So we went in and we were looking for, here's what we were looking for. It's really interesting. We were looking for the migration of animals from North America to South America and vice versa, because the continents used to be separated, North and South, and they connected about 2-3 million years ago. And so we were looking for those transitional species. So it was very exciting, something you could really picture too.
What kind of species?
Well, we found a new species of river dolphin, and I sent you some pictures of that. They found monkeys coming across about 12 million years ago. They're not sure how some of these species made it across before the continents were connected. Floating rafts of vegetation, islands that appeared and disappeared depending on tectonic activity. So it was all still mysterious, but mainly they're looking for sharks and mammals.
So when you go on a dig like this, and you're searching for these fossils, these remains that are hundreds of thousands, millions of years old
Right.
sometimes. Obviously, you've done your research, kind of the general location of where they might be, but they're deep underground, buried. How do you go about kind of pinpointing the location, or is it a lot of guesswork? And then when you come upon one, what's the process like of digging it up and preserving it and excavating it and all
That's
that?
a great question. You're like a professional interviewer. So the investigation of the discovery of a new site can go several ways. There's a site in Williston, near south of Gainesville. Just recently, a few years ago, a little granddaughter's looking, found bones, showed it to her grandmother who was with her. Now it's one of the major paleontological sites, recent, Pleistocene, in the nation.
In Williston, you said?
Williston, yeah. So they have found a lot of these gomphotheres. They have found condor, saber-toothed cat, and it's organized by UF, the paleontology. But that was just serendipity. Other times, you look at the landforms and look at the geological history, and you think that at a certain age, if you go down 30 feet, that you'll reach a strata that might be interesting. So there's different ways to do it. Sometimes it's surface collecting, which is what we were doing. But if you do find a skeleton or something fragile, you'll excavate around it and put plaster jackets on. You've seen that in the movies. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of techniques to preserve it, to get it back into the lab so you can prep it.
How long does that whole process take?
It depends It depends on the size of the creature and the condition, sure.
Do you... is it a lot of guesswork, or do you often dig and don't find anything, and is it just kind of you just do so many that eventually you'll find something, or is it more scientific than that?
Both. So you try not to waste your time on a site that may be barren. But, archaeology anyway, you'll do test holes, you'll do boreholes. So you go down, say a house is coming in, and so you'll do a test borehole to look at the strata to see if any artifacts are coming up. And sometimes paleontology does the same thing. But it helps to have a lot of manpower, person power, out there moving and digging, and a lot of stuff gets sent back to the lab for ID and preparation.
Well, maybe this is a dumb question, but what's the difference between paleontology and archaeology?
No, it's not dumb at all. So paleontology, let's do it in the reverse. Archaeology is the study of artifacts left over by people.
Gotcha.
So tools, writing, buildings, and so on. So it's a branch of anthropology, which is a study of man. Paleontology is a study of ancient life. So it may involve cavemen, but it extends to any kind of species, microbes even, fossil microbes, anything that used to be alive and is no longer here. And then a fossil can really, depending on the situation, can form pretty quickly. A couple hundred years, it can start fossiling.
So you mentioned Cindy Bear, who I did not realize when I visited your classroom a few months ago. I did not realize that she was your wife. Right. But she was there because UF and the School District of Lee County is doing this cool partnership where they're trying to get a scientist in every classroom.
Right.
And you were one of the first classrooms to participate in that?
I was the first one in Lee County.
Yeah.
In fact, I've had 2 visits now. I had another paleontologist come in who talked about Megalodon sharks, right? And Victor Thompson, sorry, Victor. He's one of the world experts on calculating the size of Megalodon. He has been into private collections and looked at associated teeth from an animal that died at the site. And he's been able to calculate. The Megalodon probably reached sizes up to about 60 feet. Strongest bite of any animal in history, 40,000-pound bite. So, so we were the first classroom, and I was in on the pilot study of...
Well, so that's a Megalodon shark tooth right there?
Yeah, this is from Venice. I didn't find it. My friend found it. I have a big collection. I've just brought you in a few. I have a huge collection elsewhere. But this is a nice transportable Megalodon. And you're looking at the back of the tooth here. Yeah. This is pressed against the tongue.
So it would have how many of those?
It has a couple hundred of these.
When we say 40,000-pound bite, 40,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, is that?
Right.
Yeah. Dang.
So this is the back of the tooth. Here's the front of the tooth. And this is the top tooth. If you're unlucky enough to be bitten, this is what you would see coming at you. So megalodons, of course, they are gone no matter which movies you see or which popular books you read.
You mean the Meg? That's not
The Meg,
that's not
Steve
accurate.
Alter, yeah.
So, I mean, the megalodon, did that just eat anything and everything it wanted, or did they have a specialized diet?
Fish and
yeah.
marine mammals. I find a lot of whale vertebrae and whale parts, and the first thing I do when I pick up a whale vertebra is look for bite marks. They're really common, and it doesn't have to be Meg. I've got some bones back at school with Meg Bites, and they're really huge. But shark bites on fossilized whale bones are extremely common. So they ate whatever they wanted, pretty much.
And where was that discovered? You said
this is from Venice, off Venice
yeah.
Beach.
And how old, roughly?
Well, Megalodon disappeared about 2 million years ago, and the site at Venice is anywhere from 4 to 2, 5 to 2 million, so I'm thinking probably around 3 million. And they got larger through time.
Do we know why they went extinct?
We do have good speculation.
Oh.
So they depended on coastal areas to give birth. They would come in, give birth, which is one reason Florida, you don't find a lot of big teeth, and there are much bigger teeth than this because it was more of a nursery. Florida was kind of shallow back then. So those coastal areas disappeared with North and South America joining with the isthmus. So it affected the ocean currents, affected ocean waters, several factors. And their food supply disappeared too. Guess what appeared on the scene? Killer whales. So killer whales probably ate their babies. So they ran out of food, the climate changed, the food supply disappeared, or changed rather. So they couldn't keep up. They had a massive diet.
Oh, that darn Shamu, always
I know.
mucking things up.
Yeah.
So 60 feet long?
Yeah, maximum.
How big is a blue whale?
Oh, I don't know. 50, I don't know.
Okay, so
50
it's,
feet, 60 feet?
Yeah, okay. Wow. Anyway, going back to the scientist in every classroom. So Cindy Bear, your wife, she's a scientist. She works at the Randall Research Center, is
Yeah,
that right?
she manages the site, and she's also burrowing owl specialist,
Yes,
too.
so she was in your class talking to your students about burrowing owls the day I went. And you tell me a little bit more about the partnership with UF and why it's important to have a professional full-time scientist, somebody who works in a specialized field, why it's important to get them in front of students and teach them things.
I'd be happy to. So this all goes back to Bruce McFadden, Dr. McFadden, who organized the trips to Panama, right? And so his idea is if we can get teachers in to see how scientists work and vice versa, scientists to know the structure of classrooms and what those teachers need, it'll be a much better fit to teach science throughout the world. And so he started this before Panama, I'm sure, but I was so impressed when I saw his work in Panama because he has such a vision. Well, he carried that vision over to a scientist in every Florida school. And we're not going to get a scientist in every Florida school, but it's an outreach program where we do have scientists coming in person or virtually or some way to get the students excited to see that she or he is just a person. Do you know when I first started teaching, or really not that long ago, I was talking about my neighbors. I have an oceanographer and I've got different neighbors. And they said, the students, 8th graders said, "You know a scientist?" I said, "Yeah, most of my friends are scientists. They're just like you and me." So they don't realize that. They think it's in fact, I dress up at the beginning of every year with my white lab coat, and I show them pictures of scientists from Panama and around the world who are young, Hispanic, or whatever, and young. And I said, not all scientists are old white men, balding white men in lab coats. So we're trying to get them to better identify, and also, just as importantly, to really understand that science is a very definite way of exploring the natural world using a systematic method. And it's not just, theories, you have a theory, it doesn't mean anything. So we try and instill an understanding and appreciation of science, because right now we're losing that at the government level throughout the world. So we need good scientist citizens.
Do you cover, in your class, do you cover the kind of full spectrum of science, from biology to chemistry to
in middle
astronomy?
School we do. Yeah, in middle school. So it changes every few years they change, depending on which textbook we select. But yes, they do. They get exposed to all of it eventually.
But you use your fossils and your shark teeth and stuff. You bring them in and use them in lessons in the classroom, right?
Oh, I have the room surrounded with skulls. I have a huge skull collection, and in fact, I had fossils out today that I got this weekend. And I was showing the kids, and I bring enough back so that I can give them some too. And they really appreciate it. There's something they can take home and show their parents. And touch. A lot of my room is tactile. So it's not sitting down there and studying from a book. We go outside. We do nature observations. I tell them, you've been learning what other people discovered. Now it's time for you to go outside and do some simple observations. You be the scientist. So I'm trying to get them engaged at a level that grabs their interest. Yeah. And they seem to like it.
How big is your collection, do you think?
Which one?
Just all the skulls and fossils, everything you've got. How many pieces do you think total?
I've got about 40 good skulls. Giraffe and just some big ones: giraffe, zebra, camel, and I have a lot of little skulls too, armadillo. And I used to carry a roadkill kit in back of my car, and so I would find, unfortunately, a dead animal, and I would prepare the skull. So I have quite a few of those bobcats, and as far as the fossils go, I have maybe 100 nice Meg teeth, and I have a lot of other fossils from many different species.
You have 100 teeth of just the Megalodon?
Nice ones. I mean, most of what you find is broken.
Yeah.
So I give those away, but because there's not enough room. I mean, the more dirt like we said in the very beginning, the more dirt you move, the more you'll find. And most fossils are not in good condition when you find them. So to find something like this, which my friend did, that's pretty good.
Before we go to the final 5 questions, you also do a lot of work with the 6 Mile Cypress Slough.
Yeah.
I actually proposed to my wife at the 6 Mile Cypress Slough.
Oh, how nice. What'd she say?
She thought long and hard about it, and she said yes. But you take students on a lot of wet walks, field trips to the slough, and you've also you've done some preservation work, right? You helped save it from being logged.
Well, I used to help teach the Monday group, which was the Bill Hammond group from many years ago that activated the citizens to buy the slough before it was logged again. So I was a teacher of that for a few years, and we're trying to get that program resurrected. High school students who meet every other Monday with a they're interested in ecology.
Well, what is the slough for people who aren't familiar with it?
Okay, slough, S-L-O-U-G-H. It's like a swamp, but it's fresh water, flowing fresh water. But you find the same plants and animals you would find in a swamp, but it's not icky. It's beautiful. I've led probably 200 or 300 wet walks through there in 200 years, or twice seems like 200 years in about 20 years. And so it's gorgeous. So if you go to 6 Mile Slough, I can go to the Interpretive Center.
And it's in Fort Myers.
It's in Fort Myers.
Just west of 6 Mile
near
Cypress
Daniels
Parkway.
and near I-75 in Colonial.
Yeah.
But I used to do it professionally when I was with the school.
I meant east, sorry. East of 6 Mile Cypress.
So I got started professionally with the school district, and then I went on the board of Friends of 6 Mile Slough, which is our advocacy group. So I lead public walks during the wet season, August, September, October. And so I've done a lot of those on weekends. And then I still take my kids through, there's grants available, teachers, from Friends of 6 Mile Slough to help you get a bus and help you get your kids to the slough.
And why is it important to preserve land like that?
Okay, so Florida, as a booming population, and believe it or not, we're running out of fresh water because we're pumping it out of ground for agriculture. Nestle's. There's a lot of springs around here which are being pumped out for major conglomerates, but we're wasting water too, so we use it on agriculture. On lawns, I hate lawns. Those grasses are so thirsty and addicted to water, and they're addicted to insecticides and fertilizers. So anyway, the slough is a recharge area is what I'm saying. It's also a natural place for protected species. It's a place of beauty, but it does allow the water to percolate down and be recharge our aquifer, which is pretty close to the surface here. So we've destroyed most of the wetlands in Florida, and this is one of the remaining ones. And now we're building artificial marshes to recharge the water system. So that's just one reason we should protect it.
And I didn't go there. I don't think, as a field trip when I was a student. I remember going to the mud flats.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, that's got to be, that was one of my favorite days of school ever, was going to the mud flats. And so, I mean, the students must be really excited when you get the chance to take them out there and do the wet walks, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of the mud flats, Environmental Ed Department is doing that again. And also I'm involved with Kea Costa, No Child Left on Shore ecology trip, which is a great name, and that's funded through Captiva Cruises and actually SCCF on Sanibel. You can email me if you want more information. But we take the kids out to Pine Island, and we take a boat and trawl to Cape Costa, get out onto Cape Costa. And most of these students have never been on a boat, much less know about the islands we have here or the marine ecology. It's a wonderful Saturday trip. So there's a lot to do in this area. If you
absolutely.
just open your eyes and ask the right people, you can make it happen.
All right. Okay, Charles, what is your favorite book?
I would say 1491. And have you heard of it?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's a wonderful book, and it explains what life was like here before European contact, which is 1492.
Yeah.
So actually some of the largest cities on Earth were in South America and Central America. There was a huge population here. It wasn't deserted. It was only deserted when the Europeans really showed up en masse because of the diseases that preceded them, killing 90% of the population of the indigenous peoples. But some of the most advanced people on Earth were in North and South America, and it does a good job of explaining it. And then 1493 is the consequences of that contact between the Old World and the New World with tea and silver and how it changed the rest of the world. So wonderful book, 1491.
Who's the author? Do you know?
The author is Mann. Let's see, I wrote it down here because Charles C. Mann, 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus.
Cool. All right, what is your favorite movie or favorite TV show?
Have you heard of Memento?
I have, Christopher Nolan.
That's right, 2000. And some psychiatrists say that's the best representation in cinema of short-term memory loss because he would go 15 minutes, as you know, and he'd lose it. And then the film proceeds with a black and white timeline and a color going in opposite directions. So you have to figure out why he's trying to track the killers of his wife.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
I've seen it, I think, 3 times now, and every time I'm still like trying to piece things together.
Right. Every time there's a new clue.
Yeah, I think it's a masterpiece. It's one of my favorites as well. Cool. And Guy Pearce is so good in that movie.
Right.
Okay, favorite song or musical artist?
I don't know, the band. I'm not a big one on music, actually.
The band? Like,
seriously,
like a high school band?
No, the old band, you know, up on Cripple Creek.
It's called The Band?
They're called The Band.
Oh, okay.
Up on Cripple Creek.
Not familiar.
The Long Black Veil.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. Science, favorite subject in school growing up, or was it something else?
Oh, no, absolutely science. In fact, in 8th grade, I used to read so far ahead in the book, which wasn't hard to do, that he would have me, the 8th grade teacher, who was not a good science teacher, had me stand up and answer the questions because I was interested and he wasn't, I guess. Back then, I was bringing stuff to school to show the kids, too. So I think I was born with that.
I was gonna say, you were always scientifically minded at a really young age. When did you realize how much you loved it?
As
far as you can remember,
started to verbalize.
Yeah.
I just think we're in a really beautiful natural. I think nature and reality is really mesmerizing, and I like to understand it, how it happens, I just like to understand it.
So were you born and raised in Lee County?
Tampa, but I moved here pretty early.
Okay. All right. Charles, if you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who would it be and why?
I had to think about that, and it had to be Leonardo da Vinci.
That's a good answer.
And he was probably the most complete and the most diverse intellectual person ever, of so many talents. I mentioned earlier he was the father of paleontology, also ichthyology, also architecture, and so many others. He was a master painter, master designer, and inventor, and he was a polymath. I think he was maybe the most remarkable person I can think of.
Have you read a lot about him, I'm assuming?
Not enough.
No, yeah.
Right.
Is there anything, any interesting fact about him that...
I would like to know how his brain works. Same with Humboldt. I just finished a book on Humboldt, and some of these folks I would not like to meet, like Newton. You know, Newton was very antisocial, very odd person.
Yeah.
But some of the others who are more socially adept, I'd like to just see how their brain works. Humboldt was amazing.
A lot of geniuses are strange people.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Dr. Charles O'Connor, science teacher at Gulf Middle School. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was really fun. Thanks for bringing your artifacts, your fossils and skulls to show us. It was really cool.
Thank you, Adam.
All right. And thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.